someone told me recently, there has never been a publicly traded CEO that from zero to publicly traded, that was African American.
Wow.
So one of my goals is to actually be the first to ever IPO.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come to win, we come to fly. This is where we make our dreams come to life. Welcome to Innovation City.
Welcome to Innovation City, a podcast featuring innovators, disruptors, and creators who are breaking through the status quo of business as usual to change the way business happens. I'm Tyler Kelly, your host, along with Michael Johnson, and we are super excited today. We're in beautiful Miami, Florida, at the CIC building in Wynwood. Big up and big thanks to Venture Cafe Miami, the largest Thursday gathering of people making things happen. And I'm super stoked because today we're talking to a very accomplished tech CEO, somebody that you really need to learn a few things from. His name is Brackeen, and he is doing some amazing things.
Now, Brian, it is a pleasure to have you today. So Brian is the CEO and founder of Kairos.
Kairos, correct.
Which was selected by Wall Street Journal as one of 2013's top 25 startups in the country, and continues to drive growth and innovation within the company and in the face of the emotion recognition space. Now, Brian leads the senior management team in establishing the company's strategic direction while engaging directly with customers and investors from around the globe. Now, prior to founding Kairos, Brian served as a senior project manager for Apple. Before that, he was a senior managing consultant for IBM. In addition to all his work at Kairos, Brian lectures extensively around the world on entrepreneurship, code, digital economy, AI, and machine learning, and also participates in mentorship programs for organizations like Girls Who Code, Black Girls Code, and the School District of Miami. So that's a lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff.
But what I have to ask you about is, so a couple months ago on Facebook, I got this thing that I just take a picture of my face,
Yes.
and it tells me my ethnicity. So I think that's you.
That was
that's
me.
responsible.
Yeah, well, us as a company, yeah, we're excited about it.
So tell me about that.
So, wow, that, like all good things Kairos, it was a complete mistake. If for those listeners that know a little something about AI, you may create a model, but you don't even know what it's going to learn over time. It's almost alive. It's really an amazing thing. And so we had this one model for ethnicity, and we taught it, here's 100 people, and these people are white, these people are black, these people are Asian, these people are Hispanic, and it's supposed to have learned just that and return to us when it sees another person, with a 100% number, what someone is. So about, a few months ago, it started sending back sub-percentages of 100. And we were like, oh, damn, like it's broken, like, what are we going to do? And it turns out it was starting to learn human genealogy by itself. And we had not coded it to do so. And so this is the power of AI. It's just self-learning.
So that's not a mistake that you have some Mexican in you, Michael.
No, because I just did it again. So I think the AI is confused by my beard because it can't measure the jawline correctly. Yeah. So I get a little bit of varied response whenever I do something like that. But
and do you know what the real percentages are compared to what we got?
I have no idea.
I'm curious to see.
I mean, I might have some idea, but it would be a long story.
So, Brian, we're here in Miami.
Yes.
You come by way of Philly.
Yes.
To Cali, and then to Miami. Is that the correct?
Yeah, Miami. Yeah, long road traveled.
How'd you get here?
Well, welcome, first of all.
Thank you.
Good to have you guys here. We want to share our kind of innovation story whenever we can, and folks coming here to tell us stories is an important part of that. But how the heck did I get from Philly to Miami, Miami to California, California to Miami?
Yeah.
It's all about a woman.
It always is.
It's always about a woman. I broke up with a girl in Philly, and I'm a lifelong kind of Philadelphian before that. And I decided, hey, you know what? I'm a single guy. I'm gonna just move to Miami, almost purely on a whim. Moved to South Beach, lived on Ocean Drive, as cliche as you can imagine, just hilarious. And then I got the email that kind of changed my life. I was working for IBM at the time. Thought I'd be there for 20 years, get a gold watch, and retire. That's what people do. And retire in Florida. That's what people do. And it said, hey, you got all this international experience. We're expanding a lot internationally. Would you like to come out and interview and ultimately join? And I was like, heck yeah. So I packed all my things that I could into 3 boxes, sent it regular mail, which is a terrible idea. Don't ever do that. And I moved to California literally like 2-3 weeks later.
Wow.
And I got to Apple just after the iPhone launch and then all the way through the iPad launch. So a period of just exponential growth.
I mean, those were amazing years for Apple. I mean, it pretty much established the brand that we know today.
Yeah, the company that I went to had only been bankrupt, years before that.
Yeah.
Right? It was borrowing money from Microsoft years before that. And the company that I left was one of the leading companies in the world.
And you got to work with Steve Jobs. Like you actually got to like be in the same room with Steve Jobs.
Absolutely. I've been in the room when he yelled at people. Totally. We used to eat lunch around the same time, the same place. The guy was a machine. He ate the same thing every single day. He wore the same thing every single day. He parked in the handicapped parking spot in the front of the building every single day. All those stories are absolutely true. And those same beat up sneakers you saw on keynotes, he wore those same beat up sneakers every day.
What'd you take from that?
That he couldn't dress. No. No, I mean, I took away from it that don't get caught up in the small stuff. Don't worry about what you're wearing or what you're doing. Are you having an impact on the world, right? And be unapologetic about the quality of your product. And if you do those things, you're going to have a great company. Now, my leadership style is a little different. I'm not a screamer, yeller, cursor. But I do believe I learned some important lessons from Steve.
So we were talking a little bit off the air, and you said that your leadership style is very empathetic.
Yes.
And sometimes that's an amazing quality. Sometimes it's a disadvantage.
Yeah, the gift and the curse, right? And so when things are going great and they're going pretty well now, you're feeling all the energy and all the joy from the team. When they're not going so well, and primarily as a CEO, it's usually mostly your fault that it's not going so well. It causes both reflection, but also you're kind of feeling the pain of the team as well, and so it's amplified greatly. So it's really important to be able to kind of measure those two things. I remember really the singular reason why I'm here today is we ran out of money once as a company, and I remember going into the office on a Friday and saying to the staff, you're going to get paid this Friday, but you're not going to get paid next Friday, and I don't know when you're going to get paid again. And I failed you as a leader. Like, all of you guys did exactly what I asked you to do and above my expectation. My job was to get the money we need to continue. And, quite frankly, my apology is not going to make your husband or your wife, be okay with the fact that the bills aren't going to get paid. And if you have to go, I understand. But if you stay, I know we're onto something. I know we're going to change the world. And if you give me a little more time, I'm going to make this right, by you. I'm going to work 60-hour weeks until it's done. And I came in that following Monday, and not a single person had left. They all stayed. And I knew from that moment that I had to commit my entire life to service of those people.
Well, that's a great example of leadership in a company.
Yeah. And we can move on past the pain.
Yeah.
It'd be good. Kidding.
So did they get paid next week?
No, they didn't get paid for about almost 2 months.
Wow.
Almost 2 months.
Those are also some great employees.
Yeah. We didn't have the traction necessary for me to raise that next money. They all worked their butts off until we did, and then we did.
So your current company, Kairos, and this is the team you're talking
Kairos.
about.
Yeah.
So obviously there's a vision and inspiration that inspired that team. So tell me a little bit about that. Like what inspires all that?
Yeah, we're wholly focused on changing the world, on making your own kind of dent in the universe. Going back to the Apple story, I remember sitting at my desk and the day I decided to resign, and I felt like my soul was being kind of sucked from the lights above me, that I couldn't sit there in a very kind of corporate environment anymore. And Apple's an amazing place, as you would imagine. You're paid well, you've got chefs making your meals, all those good things. But I knew I wanted to make my own dent in the universe, and I couldn't do it sitting there. And so I resigned. They didn't let me at first. I had to go through a process. They thought I was crazy. But eventually, when I resigned, I knew I was going to start a company that was going to have an impact. At first, we made a time clock product, actually. It wasn't even facial recognition, just clocking in and clocking out on a mobile device, which at the time was novel. We started using the front-facing camera to verify the identity of the person that's clocking in and clocking out. And we kept having customers say, love the product, kind of cool, but can we just buy the facial recognition? Because we could use it for this and we could use it for that. And we realized, why don't we just make a facial recognition company? And that pivot is really what propelled the company forward. And that's kind of why people are interested in why they stay, because we're not just making time clocks, right? We're trying to change everything.
With facial recognition, would you consider that like a somewhat crowded marketplace, like in and of itself, facial recognition?
Yeah, there are hundreds of facial recognition companies. I think what makes any of us different, or us in particular, is one, we don't work with governments. So 90% of facial recognition companies are working with governments.
Okay.
We just think, one, we don't really want the technology used for kind of a knowledge purpose. Government isn't interested in just understanding everything, right? We think that when there's a profit motive, it's a little easier to decide who you want to or don't want to work with, right, from a corporate perspective. So we will only work with companies. And then our use cases tend to be a lot more life and death. So things like paying panelists to watch ads, and we'll use the camera to read the emotions as they watch the ad, to understand the highs and the lows. We'll have people in a movie theater watching a film that's not out yet to read their emotions as the characters come in and the jokes are told, to help that studio make better trailers or make changes to the final edits. We do things with transportation companies like cruise lines, airlines, you name it, to speed the onboarding process with facial recognition. So we think these use cases are more interesting to us.
The emotional aspect really, that's really exciting. I haven't heard too many companies like getting into that, especially when you think about AI.
Yeah.
What's the future look like where a machine can determine how I'm feeling?
That's today.
Yeah.
So it looks like out the window right now. So we're one of only two companies that do really kind of psychologically based facial recognition. And so what this means is when you're feeling certain emotions, there are certain emotions that are clinically assigned to certain muscle movements in your face. And we've trained the algorithm to find those movements when they happen, and those movements are involuntary. So when you're feeling that emotion, those muscles move. And so we can understand how you feel about any content in any given quarter second, and then use that to better understand you and better serve you.
Is this something that can be seen with the human eye?
Some are too fast,
okay.
And it's just like a fleeting thing. Others, it can be seen a grimacing look or whatever, like huge smile, of course. So it just depends.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's exciting stuff.
We've talked about this some with our team when we do like headshots where we know that a genuine smile you see in the corner of your eyes.
There you go.
And so like psychologically a good headshot is one where someone doesn't have a fake smile. So
That's right. We've all seen the fake smile, right? In fact, we're all trained to identify real versus fake emotion.
Yeah.
That's what makes a great actor versus a bad actor, right? So an algorithm can simply do that at a much higher level.
How much implementation does this kind of technology have already? Because from my view, Facebook already knows me pretty well.
Sure.
And they can already show me things that are exactly what I want for the most part.
Yes.
At least they're advertising, not so much what's in my feed. Anyway, that's another story. But
another day.
Is this stuff already out there? Like, are people seeing how I'm reacting to a story to know if it's going to show me more of that?
Yeah, ultimately, we have tens of thousands of customers in hundreds, over 100 countries, right? So, yeah, it's certainly all the way out there. There are some examples that I think are probably even simpler that are part of your everyday life. So, like, you ever been in the back of a cab in New York City, and they got those TV screens, right? So a lot of those cabs have cameras, and the ads will be based on your age, gender, ethnicity. The camera can figure out how old you are, what gender you are, and so three of us may see a male Nike ad, someone else may see a female Nike ad, right? And so it's those kinds of things that are all around us. We may not really realize it.
Yeah, and I think sometimes this stuff seems, it can seem creepy, but at the same time it can, the balance of that is that it enhances your life in certain ways.
And that's the ultimate question, right? From a privacy perspective, did I see the thing that I wanted to see anyway, right? Or do I not like the fact that it was changed based on who I am? I think it's a societal question we've got to ask. For Kairos, we do draw a line between anonymous facial recognition and the who you are facial recognition. So at the end of the day, any retailer could hire an intern to stand in front of the building and say, male, 25, African American came in, right? And just keep a note. We're simply doing that with cameras. But beyond that, for a retailer to say, this is Brian, right? I think for us, we require our customers to have both consent and some relationship between that person and them. We don't have a database of people, right?
So why'd you make that decision?
We're one of the few privacy-focused facial recognition companies in the world. I actually testified about this to the Department of Commerce a couple years back. We believe in the power of the technology to make our lives better, but we don't think it needs to be a one-way street. It shouldn't only be for the companies to make more money off of us. They should be giving back or serving us in some way.
It kind of reminds me of that quote that good advertising helps us want what's good for us. I mean, that's kind of a motto that we embrace when we work with companies and do marketing. We're not going to sell something to somebody that's bad for them. We don't want to do that.
Yeah, this is a great example. So I don't know if you guys have ads here or not, but if you did, you wouldn't select certain products you didn't believe in. If you thought a product was be hurtful for your audience, even if it was money attached to it, you wouldn't sell that ad, right? We feel the same way.
Would you consider yourself a conscious business in that respect?
I would.
Okay.
I would. Yeah, I think that the challenge is our industry isn't as conscious as we are.
Yeah.
I would love to have like a good housekeeping label of approval I could put on our website and say, Kairos is following these things. We're trying to get there as an industry. I don't think we're there yet.
That's an interesting topic because I think there's a lot of businesses that are trying to take a conscious approach and trying to make the world a better place through the things that I know that's a very like general statement, make the world a better place. But,
I love it.
But there are a lot of businesses doing this, and like, how do all those businesses find each other?
Is there a way?
I don't know.
I don't know that there is.
There is, but it's very difficult.
Very
it's
difficult.
The B Corp, I believe.
Yeah.
And it's like insane to qualify for.
Yeah, exactly. And then we're venture backed. I don't know if we can go down those roads, but maybe you can. But I do think when we talk about our values and our blog posts and our website, and we see different folks and different genders and you name it on our website, I think that people who are conscious do kind of see that in us, right? And I know when I go to like the IKEA website, and maybe they're horrible people, I don't know, but I feel like they're thoughtful folks, and I'm drawn to it, though there's not something that says it on the website. So I hope we're getting it across.
It's just that like attracts like, I think.
Yeah. You guys seem like good guys. Maybe there's that too.
I would hope so. I'd like to think so. So you've been talking about kind of your company making a dent in the world, and that's a pretty general statement.
Yeah.
But so for you, like, what's the bigger why that transcends your company? Like, whatever your venture is, there's a bigger why. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what is the dent you're trying to make in the world?
There's a deeper psychological one, and then there's kind of like all of our minds are the conscious and subconscious, like the rational and the irrational mind. My irrational reason is I was adopted at about 6 months old by two amazing parents in Philadelphia. It gave me really kind of a perfect childhood. But there's actually, if you look at the data, there's a bunch of extremely successful CEOs that were adopted. And I believe that unconsciously we're always trying to prove to ourselves and that parent that we never knew how worthy we are.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that that's my subconscious, irrational why. I think that my conscious why, growing up in Pennsylvania, in a place very tolerant, very kind of Amish values, right? Very, I actually had Amish foster parents, if you can believe that or not. Like,
Wow.
No technology, and here I am doing AI. It's really funny. But also the kind of Quaker values as well, of community and taking care of your brother and sister. I'm really committed to seeing this be a success for, again, our employees, for our early investors, for our community. You can't tell from the radio, but I happen to be African American as well. And there just aren't many examples of kind of the $1 billion startup founder from scratch, right? In fact, someone told me recently, as someone at Morgan Stanley, that there has never been a publicly traded CEO that from zero to publicly traded that was African American.
Wow.
Yeah,
Really?
So one of my goals is to actually be the first to ever IPO.
Is dent in the world something that Steve Jobs used to say? Or
Yeah, that's a
That's what I
Jobsian.
thought, but I didn't
It's
know.
in the universe.
Okay, yeah. So, I think that's inspirational. Like for somebody self-made, CEO, publicly traded. I mean, that's never happened before.
Correct.
Like, what's the story? Like, it's gonna happen. Just meeting you and looking at what you're doing. It's like, wow, there's something happening here.
It's a big enough idea
Yeah.
to support that kind of. Yeah.
And just like with your history and your trajectory, it's just, it's believable. So like now, a few years down the road when it does happen, who knows, 5, 10, what's that say to people that are, looking for opportunities they're looking for that inspiration to be that person?
Yeah, I think there's two sides to the coin. One, I've got to do it, no small task. But two, I've got to be really open and raw and doing, podcasts like these where I share my story so people can see that it's not just some guy that went to some amazing school, which I didn't, got some amazing grades, which I didn't, or grew up in a certain situation, that I'm like them, right? So I got mostly D's and F's all through school, just socially promoted. We were certainly middle class, but I wasn't wealthy growing up, so it wasn't like a kind of a trust fund situation. I dropped out of college after the first semester. So I want people to see that, there is a path, and that I am a lot like them.
I wasn't expecting the D's and F's. Like, you have the coding background. Like, when did that happen? How did it happen?
Yeah, you're supposed to be smart guys, these coders
Yeah.
and gals. So I was always a good student in computers. My dad brought home a computer when I was 8 years old, and it's kind of like the Matrix. Neo can see the Matrix. I can read code like you can read English. I mean, it's the same thing to me. Yeah, but every other subject, very, very difficult. And I learned about myself that I can actually learn any subject, but I need to be living it. It needs to be part of my life. Like, as a CEO, I'm a voracious reader. But it has to be those things that I'm doing every day and I'm learning from my experiences. I'm just not a traditional learner, and that was always my challenge.
With code, during that era, like, it wasn't in school, so you didn't have a chance to excel, like, with grades because they weren't teaching it back then. That was something that people, like you said, you got the computer and you just started messing around, and next thing you know, it's like, wow, the world is open to me. How did that make you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I'm 38, so I've been coding for 30 years. And when I got into computers, it was just DOS, It was just almost like a device, not even a computer that you brought home. And to play the games that I wanted to play, that my dad would buy me, I had to learn how to put in the right DOS commands to get the game to run, right? And so I quickly learned that I could manipulate the screen and get the result I was looking for. And that's a lesson that I'm taking for the rest of my life, really.
And so you drop out of college, and how did you get your break? How did you get your opportunity? Was it through a person? Was it through making a name, like, in that coding space? Like, how'd you get here?
So the reason I dropped out was I had already gotten a job at Comcast doing like technical support. Okay. And I would go to work, fix something, and then I would go to school later that night, and they would say, "This is how you do that." And I'd say, "Oh, no, I tried that. It didn't work. I had to do this, right?" And I realized quickly, again, that my direct manipulation of things was more real than the textbook. And so I was like, I'm paying these people? I had to be teaching this class. So, yeah, it dropped out. But I think, luckily for me, and outside of my control, the tech industry is more open to people who don't have degrees. It's all about, can you code it? Can you do it? It's all about the task, not the education, generally, in our field. And so it's one of the few fields where that was acceptable.
One of the things I want to talk about, one of the things that we mentioned in the intro in your bio is that you do mentorship with Girls Who Code, Black Girls Code, this Miami School District.
Yes.
Being in and around the tech industry, there isn't enough representation, within the African American community in coding. So it sounds like you're trying to make a difference in that.
Yeah, another one.
Change that.
I'm a big fan of Launch Code. I know you guys are from St. Louis.
Yeah.
Jim McKelvey. We borrowed him from you guys for a little while here in Miami. Amazing gentleman, and he's been a good mentor to me as well. And that's a good example, right? Like, he's got all the money in the world. He doesn't have to, mentor anybody, right? He doesn't have to help. He doesn't have to give back, but he does. I think it's incumbent upon all of us to do so, and especially in some of the communities we talked about, cities that are not San Francisco and New York. Young women of color, but really young girls. Period. There aren't enough women in tech, and if I can do something to help to bridge that gap, to solve those problems, I'm serving the universe.
No, I like that. I think there unfortunately is a digital divide.
Yeah.
And it's organizations like these that are hopefully, working to bridge that divide.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a major impact that you're having. what specifically are you doing with these organizations?
So like when we mentor and we sponsor, there's some really great talent on the Kairos staff. One of our we have 2 lead engineers for the whole company. One of them, her name is Renisha Bellew. She wouldn't mind me saying she is an amazing coder, rock star. And you have to know Renisha to know that she's a pretty shy person, like a lot of us coders. And I gave a speech at Black Girls Code one day, talking to young ladies about entrepreneurship and coding and what they can do with their lives. And they're probably better students than I ever was. And Renisha, who was in the audience, came up at the end and said, "My name is Renisha, and I'm going to work for you." And she'll tell you now that she would never do that. She doesn't know what came over her. She wouldn't let me leave until I took her name, took her information down. I ended up looking her up on LinkedIn. And rock star. She was like coding spy satellites for like the government. She's an amazing coder. And now she leads our front end team.
That's amazing. It's nice to know that you're not only like donating your time, but you're hiring people from the community as well.
Absolutely. And to get back to the core of your question, and now she goes out and then she talks to young girls, and unlike me, they see themselves in her, right? And it's even more powerful.
Yeah.
And we empower our employees to make that change as well.
That's amazing. I think you said that she goes out into the community and the community sees somebody like them.
That's right.
And so a lot of times I think in life we need to see somebody that's in our position or who was in our position that made it.
Yes. And hope is a powerful thing, right, guys? Like when you can give somebody hope, it doesn't matter what their current situation is because they'll be aspirational. But if they've never seen it, it's hard to get there. It's really, really hard to get there. And I credit my parents, my family for giving me that. And we have to give that back. And it doesn't always have to be monetary, right? Just a glimpse into the future. And I think Renisha is that glimpse for people.
Well, I am super excited, Brian, about Kairos. I think that, you guys have a bright future ahead. I like to say your best days are ahead of you.
We hope so.
Thank you for being on the show. This has been an amazing education for me, just in the brief moments that we've had you here, just into this technology that sometimes when you're not in it, you don't even realize that it's gotten so far.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. And this is the companies of the future, we believe. There'll always be amazing companies in New York and San Francisco, but there will also be amazing companies in other places like Miami.
For sure. How can people get in touch with Kairos?
So Kairos.com, we have a contact us page. Definitely follow the company and myself on Twitter. We're at Love Kairos, because we're into the love stuff. And I'm at Brian Brackeen, and you guys could, I'm sure, share on your podcast, but BRIAN, BRACKEEN. So
Awesome.
Well, Brian, it's been a pleasure having you. I'm looking forward to that IPO.
Oh, excellent. We'll see you then.
For more episodes, visit innovationcity.co and be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. If you're in Miami, visit us at Venture Cafe on Thursday nights. You can find details at venturecafemiami.org and connect with us on social at WeAreSlam and Venture Cafe MIA.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come to win, we come to fly. This is where we make our dreams come to life. Welcome to Innovate.